Hey, Team Play Hard and Team Stronger Together. Welcome. Our team call tonight. We've got a special guest speaker. Mark is joining us all the way from Kentucky. Mark and I met back in October at the Boeisen event. Emily was able to meet him as well. So if Emily hops on, she'll probably rant and rave about him too. But the reason that we're bringing Mark to you guys tonight is that Mark did a signature talk beginning of January, and I happened to get a copy from him of the audio version, and it was freaking amazing. Like, I listened to it 2 or 3 times. And so Ellen and I reached out to Mark, and we asked Mark if he could basically do his signature talk to you guys. Now, no, he's not selling anything at the end. It's not one of those, but it is designed to kind of encompass your whole life, not just your Beachbody business. But what I really want, and what Ellen really wants, is you guys to take the principles that he's about to teach you that are seriously amazing and apply them to all areas of your life, specifically your business, but all other areas too. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself out. Mark, why don't you start and just give everybody a little bit of background on yourself, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good. Good evening to everyone. Hope you're doing fabulous. Honored to be on the call. Had a blast getting to know CJ and Emily in California at that conference. And I'll just say, before I tell you about myself, I was hanging out with the 2 of them and several other Beachbody coaches in the house that we all stayed in, and was just thoroughly impressed with them and their commitment to the business and kind of the methodology behind doing the way you guys do what you do. And so when she asked me to do this, I was like, yeah, that's a great fit. I'd love to. And so excited to be on it. So a little bit about me. I've been married almost 18 years. I've been a pastor for about 20 years, but I also do one-on-one coaching, as well as lead mastermind groups with different clients on a weekly basis. So that is a little bit about me, and I'm going to dive in. Are y'all ready? So, like, I've done plenty of conference calls, but, like, I'm a speaker, and so, like, you're just going to have to keep up with me when I move around, okay? And if you help a brother out when he's speaking and, like, react, for those of you on video, that I would really appreciate that. So, and I will ask for participation. Even if I can't see you on video, I will, so just do it. So here's what I want to talk to you about. What will your story be in 2017? So we're in month 2 of the year, and the question that I want to challenge you with is, what will your story be in 2017? What is the story you're going to write? Because here's what I believe. I believe that when God created us, he filled us with potential and he gave us power. If you don't like talking about God in the equation, I'm okay with that. Let's just say it this way, that every single human being has unlimited potential and power on the inside of them. But the sad reality is that most people live with wasted potential, and they feel powerless to change. Like, they're stuck where they're at. They're powerless to change. And so I've learned over the course of my life that sometimes the best way to communicate truth is to tell a story. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you, because if you haven't discovered this, when you start to dig into your own story, you start to discover who you are when you go back and you look back and you see, what happened in my life? How did I get to the place where I'm at? And so when I started doing a little bit of digging, started at that conference in California, at the Boeisen conference, my story took me back to middle school. And middle school for me was basically painful and miserable. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but it almost robbed me of moments just like this. So when I was in middle school, I was insecure, I was awkward, and I was desperate, literally desperate for people to like me. And you know that those kids in middle school, high school, for some reason it seems like it was mostly guys, and some haven't grown out of it yet. But anyways, they were that kid that tried to get everyone's attention. I
gotta turn it up.
Act like they were funny and hilarious, and yet they usually ended up getting themselves in trouble or making a big mess of things. Yeah, that was me. I was that awkward middle school guy. And the other thing was, I went through a chubby phase in middle school. And this wasn't the cute chubby, like, oh, look at him, he's so cute. This is more like the embarrassing chubby, like I had the rolls around my stomach, and we played basketball, we played shirts and skins, and I'd always be like, I'll play on the shirts. And then I didn't get on the church team, I'd be like, all right, I'll sit out a game. I'm good. No, it's all right. Because I was just that embarrassed. We'd go to the pool, and it was miserable for me in middle school because like I never want to take off my shirt because I did not know who I was. I had no confidence in my identity. I remember there was a time, there was this girl, Becky Reynolds. She was beautiful, very beautiful. Got a little bit of a crush on Becky, and I decided that I was going to ask Becky to be my girlfriend. And I was going to do it the right way. And there's none of this, write a note and circle yes or no, because that was elementary school, right? So I was going to be mature, and I was going to go up straight to Becky's face, and I was going to ask her face to face to be my girlfriend. And I remember like it was yesterday because she was standing outside of Mr. Spears's social studies classroom, right next to the yellow locker right there. And I walked up to Becky Reynolds, and I looked her in the eye, and I said, Becky, will you be my girlfriend? And she paused, and I was hopeful, but only for a moment, because then Becky laughed in my face. So if you think you guys have dealt with rejection with this whole building your business thing, just think about Becky Reynolds laughing in my face. I can relate to your rejection woes, okay? But that was tough for me. And then the other thing about middle school is I'm an identical twin brother. Anybody is a twin on the call? Raise a hand. No twins. It was great being a twin. He was my built-in best friend from birth. Okay, we're still extremely good friends today. But when I was going through my chubby phase, which by the way, I did not know was a phase. I thought it was completely permanent, that I was always going to be that way. When I was going through chubby, he was like rail thin, skinny as a rail, like you could see his rib cage skinny. It was gross. And so when I was going through this, he was like this totally different kid. And I didn't realize it then. And this is where it comes when you dig into your story, right? I didn't realize it then. But looking back, it's like crystal clear that I felt like I was living in my brother's shadow. And it wasn't because of anything he said or anything he did. Again, he was my best friend, and he always made me better. He always pushed me. We always pushed each other. But I had these voices in my head that kept running, voices that said things like, people like him more than you. He's more socially accepted. He gets along with people better. People just like him better than you. I had voices that were saying he's smarter than you, especially in math, because I hated math. Any other math haters on the call here? Because I hated math. And so he was smarter than me. And then like the other piece was sports, because sports were a big part of my journey, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And he was in basketball, which was our main sport, he was a point guard. And so he was the most important player on the floor. He was the floor general, and he was the best, right? And me, I was kind of like the 7th or 8th guy off the bench, and I just wasn't that important. And so by the time we got to middle school, like his skill development was out the roof, and I was lagging far behind. And so middle school for me was just painful, because with every laugh of rejection, with every shameful thought about the fat rolls, and every minute I sat on the bench riding the pine while my brother was out there playing ball and making plays, I had this resounding thought in my head that went like this, and this is what it said: you are not enough. And I don't know if you've heard that voice in your life, that you're not enough, that you're not smart enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not good enough. But whatever area of life, you fill in the blank, you're not enough. And here's what I've realized on my journey is that we are constantly going to be in a battle to live our lives in the truth about who we are, or to live our lives according to the lies that the enemy wants to tell us. And call the enemy whatever you want, the devil, karma, Murphy's Law, call it whatever you want. But there is a battle going for our lives, for us to fulfill the potential that's on the inside of us, to live into the greatness. And so I was in that vulnerable place where I was starting to hear these voices that I'm not enough, that I'm not good enough, that I'll never be enough, that I'll never quite measure up, I'll never get out of that shadow. And here's the thing, those voices usually start when we're vulnerable, when we're young and impressionable. Because if we start believing those things when we're young, and we start repeating those things in our mind, and they become a script that just constantly runs on repeat, then we'll start believing those things. And we'll start living into those lies instead of living into the truth about the greatness on the inside of us. So for me, I did not realize it at the time that I was in that vulnerable state. But as I finished up my middle school years, that's exactly where I was at. I was on the precipice of living into lies for the rest of my life. And so then I went into the summer. I finished my 8th grade year, went into the summer, and there was something that began to change everything in my life. I went to a camp. It was a church camp, and I'd never been to this camp before. I've never been back to it ever since. And I make that point just to say this. You know what? Sometimes all it takes is one day. Like one day, one moment in one day to change everything for you. I'm kind of hoping that tonight might be that for somebody on this call. That like this might be a moment where everything changes for you after this call tonight. But I went to this camp, and I have no idea who was speaking. I couldn't tell you what he said or what they looked like. Couldn't tell you a thing. But I remember this. I made a decision because he had this little piece at the end of his talk that he said, hey, do you want to make Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? And so I made a decision that night to ask Jesus Christ to be my Lord and Savior and to forgive me of my sins and to accept me just as the screwed up kid that I was. And I remember walking out, because everybody that made that decision walked out across the field and walked into this other building. And I remember walking in there. I remember the book they gave us. It was blue and green and had a yellow logo on it. And I remember that. But you know what I remember the most? I was changed. I was different because this shy, awkward, insecure kid, all of a sudden, I was loved and accepted just as I was. Like I didn't have to perform for anybody. I didn't have to be good enough for anybody else. I was loved and accepted. I was a child of God all of a sudden. And you know what? I finally knew that I was enough. I was enough. And so I had this spiritual awakening. And then I go back for my freshman year. And maybe you've had this moment, like something big, life transforming happens. And then you go back to where you were. And I was like, oh crap, I still feel like I'm in middle school. I feel like I'm that shy, awkward, insecure kid. I don't know if anything really changed. And it was because, you know why? Because I had these scripts in my head. You've probably heard people say that the biggest battle is what happens between our ears, right? That what's going on in here, it matters more than anything. And what we're telling ourselves matters more than anything. And so I hadn't broken those scripts, those negative cycles in my mind yet. And so I start my freshman year. I go out for the basketball team. My twin brother, Blaine is his name. He goes out for the basketball team. And Blaine gets moved up to the junior varsity team, not just to play, but to be the starting point guard, okay? So you got to understand, basketball is part of my story, okay? So I like to talk with the ball in my hands. So he gets moved up. And that left me on the freshman team with Coach Benner. Now, Coach Benner was the varsity football coach. And he was coaching the freshman boys basketball team, which he openly, no excuse, no hiding it, he openly loathed. And he would sit in practice and he would draw up plays for the next football season. But he drew up a play for us. Our offense was called playground offense. And he'd say, hey guys, go out and play like playground and have some fun. And I didn't realize it at the time, you know, because most of our defining moments were like that. I didn't realize it at the time. But for me, that time, that season, that basketball season was a defining moment for me. Because I could have played up to the level of my stellar coaching, right? I could have quit. Because I could have played the victim. That's not fair. They moved Blaine up. They should have moved me up. They should have left me down here. That's not fair. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to play the victim. I could have done that. I could have got mad and ran out. And I'm pretty sure I entertained all of those ideas for at least a little bit of time. Maybe some violence toward other people, just a little bit of violence. But I made a decision instead, and this was my decision. I made a decision to take back my power and to live into my unlimited potential. And it changed everything. I've never backed up on that decision. So it's the freshman season, right? So this is my moment. Blaine, he's moved up along with the other two best basketball players. And so that left a void on this freshman team for me to step in, to rise to the occasion. It was my big moment, right? There was only one problem. I was not that good a basketball player at the time. Remember, he was a lot better than me. That's why he got moved up. I wasn't that good, but I was determined to not let that stop me. And so I made a decision. I knew there was two things that I could do. I could work harder than anybody else on my team. And I knew, number two, that I could make everybody around me better. And so that's what I set out to do. I said, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to add value to everybody around me. And you know what? That's what I began my freshman year, that defining moment for me. And so I ran cross country, and running cross country, by the way, is anybody running cross country? Raise your hands. Anybody? Yeah, stupid sport, isn't it? I mean, who does that? It's like punishment. It's a crazy, stupid sport. But I was the slowest. I came in last on the team, but I kept running. And when we went on those long routes, those long ones where the coach couldn't see you anymore, and the other guys were cutting corners and taking shortcuts that coach didn't know about, I didn't do that. I kept running. I ran the full route and maybe a little extra. And wouldn't you know it, it didn't take too long before I was scoring points in the big meets for the team, and I wasn't the last guy. And I decided to run track, and so I ran track. I was never the fastest. That still has not changed. I was never the fastest, but coach said, hey, I want you to run the 110-meter high hurdles. And hurdles are all about form, right? And so I decided that even though I wasn't the fastest, I could work on the form. And I worked on the form, and I worked on the form. I worked harder than everybody else. And because I did that, by the time I got to my senior year, I was like second in the league and running faster than I ever thought I could because I worked at it. I also, on the track team, I ran the 4x400 meter relay. Has anybody ever ran that race? That's another stupid one. Billy, you did all the stupid stuff, man. Like you were that guy. So the 4x400 meter relay, you put one or two guys in the anchor position, right? The anchor position was either the fastest guy, that's who you usually put there. That was probably Billy, wasn't me. Or there's a second guy you could put in there, and that was the guy that was not faster, but he was crazy enough that he was going to win, even though he wasn't faster. And that was me. I was the crazy guy. And so I did that. Then by the time we got to our senior year, we're playing ball, and I was starting right alongside my brother. Our junior, senior year, we won back-to-back league championships. It was awesome. And here's the deal. I still wasn't the best. I still wasn't the highest scorer. I wasn't the fastest guy on the team. But I was the guy, whoever that other team's best player was, that's who I got to guard. Didn't matter if he was a foot taller than me post player or if he was shorter and faster than me as a point guard. I got to guard him because I had the heart to shut him down. And that's what I did just about every time. I would shut down their best player. And when there was like a charge to be stepped into, man, I was like, whoo. I would take the charge, fall down. I'd be bleeding all the time. If there was like a loose ball on the floor, I was like, whoo! I had permanent floor burns on my elbows and my knees the whole basketball season because I was that guy that I was going to make everybody better, right? I was going to work harder. And I didn't need to replace my brother. I didn't need to be better than him. I just wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to add that value to somebody else, to this group of people that were doing something bigger than ourselves. And by the time we got to our senior year, that whole he was smarter than me thing, right? My brother and I, we shared the title of salutatorian, the second in the class with like the exact same GPA. And I'd also like to note, I was voted friendliest and most outgoing, and I even had a couple girlfriends. So the whole getting laughed at, rejection thing, I made it through that, had a couple girlfriends, so pretty excited about that. But here's the thing, that's my story, right? My story is unique to me, right? Or is it? Let me ask, how many on this call, I won't be able to hear you, so give me like a wave or a good head nod here, okay? If you're sitting there by yourself, just say it out loud for your sake. I want you to answer this question out loud. How many have you ever felt powerless to change your circumstances? Yeah? Not alone anymore. How many of you ever felt like you didn't have any potential or you wasted the potential that you did have? Anybody ever felt that? Yeah. How many of you ever felt trapped in circumstances? Maybe it was a way of thinking or an addiction or just some kind of habit you couldn't break out of. Has anybody ever felt trapped? Yeah. How many of you have ever genuinely wanted to make a difference, to help other people experience that transformation in their life, but you have days where you're just like, I don't think I can cut this. I'm not good enough to make a difference. Anybody ever had that? Has anybody ever had, since we're at the beginning of a year here, has anybody ever had 2016 look you in the eye and be like, you suck? You're not going to do this. You're going to fail. Has anybody ever felt that from 2016? Yeah. Good. I'm in the right place here, because it turns out that my story is not just my story. It's all of our stories, that we can all relate to these things, because we've got to get to a place where we recognize the battle that we're facing. And see, I've identified my enemy in life, and my enemy is people that feel powerless and hopeless. My enemy is wasted potential. And so when I get on this call, my desire is to just tear out powerless out of your life so that you don't ever feel powerless again. My desire is to stir up and remind you that there is potential on the inside of you, and that you just need to tap into it, to step into that greatness that is on the inside of you. But you can't do it if you don't take some steps. And that's what I had to learn. There were some critical steps that I took in my freshman year, and I continue to take them in my life to this day. Critical steps that changed everything for me, and that's what I want to share with you. So I'm going to give you the first critical step. Are you ready? Critical step number one is this: take back your power. Take back your power. I need a little participation. I don't care if you're on video or not. Get your hands free right now, because you're going to need them. I need you to do this. Just reach up to heaven like this, and then pull your hands down like this, and you're going to say on the count of three, take it back like this. Ready? 1, 2, 3, take it back. Okay, I can't hear you, but I've done this before. You're all pansies, and that was not you were taking back weakness, not power, okay? So I would like you to do this again. I want when you pull that down, your knuckles need to turn white, okay? You're taking power back. Say it like you mean it on the count of three. 1, 2, 3, take it back. Now just hold that for a second, because that felt good, didn't it? Like you feel something in that. That is how you were created to be a powerful individual, not to be a weak, playing the victim individual. You've got to see, life is not going to fall into your lap. This business, this Beachbody business that you're building, it's not going to fall in your lap. Have you all experienced that a little bit? It takes some work. It takes you recognizing how powerful you are to be who you were created to be. Now, some of you, has anybody read the book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson? I figured some of you have read it. So he talks about this thing in his book. I'm going to use this board. There's two curves that you live in life, and you can pick which one you live on. And this one is, I'm a lefty and I write sloppy. Stop talking about me. The first curve is a success curve. The bottom curve here is the failure curve. You guys can read that? So you got this curve here, and see how they look very similar here? They start out the same. But at some point, you got to make some decisions, and you're going to end up either in the success realm or you're going to fall down in the failure realm. And here's the only difference. The only difference between which one you're going to end up on is your mental attitude about life. And here's what's going to happen. If you live this, if you live in blame, if that's your primary attitude, like you're not going to take responsibility. You're just going to blame everybody else. So CJ, you're not going to take responsibility. You're going to blame Billy because he's low down and dirty and didn't clean the dishes last night. And so your grumpiness is Billy's fault instead of your own, right? Or you're not going to take responsibility. You're going to blame those clients or those people on your team who aren't functioning at the level they need to function. Instead, you're just going to blame. You're going to play the victim, zero responsibility for you. If it doesn't fall into your lap, and I'm telling you, if that's the way you choose to live, you're going to end up on the failure curve. But if instead you choose to take, I'm abbreviating, if you choose to take responsibility, the only way that your business is going to be successful, the only way that you are going to be successful and live into your unlimited potential is if you take responsibility in every single area of your life. You can't wait for somebody else to do it. You can't push it off on someone else. You've got to make a decision, and on a daily basis, to take back your power, to live with responsibility, to be everything that you are destined to be, to step into that greatness. You know, a lot of times we think that the power that we have is determined by our circumstances. We believe this lie that if I have good circumstances, then I can feel powerful. If my circumstances are bad, then I'm weak. But your circumstances do not determine your power. What determines your power is your ability to choose. See, regardless of what is happening in your life, you always have the ability to use your personal power to choose to take responsibility. Let me share a little story with you. So I'm a pastor, right? So there's a guy in our congregation who's a friend, and I married he and his wife, Jana, John and Jana, about 2 years ago. Had my first wedding in a castle, literally a freaking castle. It was amazing. Married this couple 2 years ago. About 2 months ago, I had to do the funeral for John. 38 years old, father of 2 adorable little girls, one who was barely a year old when he passed away at 38 years old. And so about 14 months ago, John had been fighting a cold, felt like he had a virus or something. He couldn't lick it for about a month. And so he was like, finally, after a month, he couldn't get rid of this virus. He goes into the ER. And I remember getting the call from Jana on the phone, and she was hysterical in tears because they thought he had meningitis, the bad kind. And so I took off. I was headed to the ER. I get there within several hours. Actually, it was within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, doctors are coming in, and he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia. So John never left the hospital, and he's diagnosed with leukemia. Within 48 hours, he's receiving his first treatment of chemotherapy. He goes into this battle, and for the next 14 months, they battle. He has ups, he has downs. It was tough. I spent a whole lot of time in the hospital with he and his wife. He ended up getting a bone marrow transplant, and the whole goal of the bone marrow transplant, you basically break the body down as far as it can go, and you get all the cancer out. And so the bone marrow transplant was successful. He was cancer-free. But what happens is the body's broken down so far that it takes time to rebuild and to get your strength and energy back and your health back. And his body was vulnerable to disease and infection, and so he kept getting infections, and he just couldn't keep fighting back. I remember about 2-3 weeks before he passed, he was getting ready to move back into the ICU unit, and the concern was that if he went on a ventilator, that he wasn't going to come off of it. And so I was told just 30 minutes before I got there that the family had been having conversations with him about, John, what are your final wishes? Do you want to be resuscitated? How long do you want him to stay on the ventilator? They were having those conversations. So I got there to the hospital a little after they'd had those conversations. He was resting. So I stepped out into the hallway with Jana to have a conversation with her. We were talking, and then his mom came out, interrupted us, and said, hey, he's awake. He wants to talk to you. Now listen, I'm not diminishing your circumstances, but are you understanding the gravity of what's happening here? They don't know if he's going to live or die. And they've just been talking about final wishes. And so I walk in there, I kneel down at his bedside, and I say, hey, John, what's up, man? Because he said he wanted to talk to me. He said, yeah, I wanted to talk to you. When I get out of here, after I get healed up and I can walk without a cane, Jane and I are ready. We want to start that ministry to people that are dealing with what we're dealing with. We want to go into hospitals and comfort people and give support to families that are dealing with this battle with cancer. We're ready. And so I just wanted you to know we're ready so that as soon as I get out here and get healed up, we can get started. John and Jana, and I said this at his funeral, John and Jana were never a victim of leukemia. They weren't, because this is why. They never relinquished their ability to choose in that circumstance. Their ability to choose hope, to choose faith, to choose love and grace when they could have been angry and bitter over what was happening. They never surrendered their ability to choose. So I don't know what your circumstances are, and I'm not diminishing them at all. But listen, every single one of you, you have the power to choose. You have the power to take back your power and make a decision of the life you're going to live, of the attitude that you're going to have. If you're going to allow yourself to blame other people, or if you're going to take responsibility. And some of you got to be honest with yourself right now and admit that in 2016, you were down here. That you played the victim a little bit in 2016. Listen, I'm not talking at you. I played the victim some in 2016. But I've got my butt in gear and I'm doing some stuff to change my life. I'm taking responsibility because nobody else can do that for me but me. And so that's the challenge of this first critical step. You've got to take back that power. You've got to recognize that there's greatness and power on the inside of you, and you've got to grab hold of it to step into the life that you want to live, the success that you want to experience. The breakthrough in your business is not more people, more downline, more sales. The breakthrough in your business is this decision right here. I'm going to take back that power. I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to live into my life. It does not matter what anybody else does, because I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what only I can do that nobody else can do. And if you make that decision, if you take back that power, then you're ready for critical step number 2. You ready for critical step number 2? Come on. Come on. Here we go. Number 2 is this. You've got to recognize and live into your potential. Participation, get your hands free again. Are you ready? This is what you need to do. You've got to recognize. Some of y'all got to wake up here. On the count of 3, I need you to recognize. I need people on video. I see you, okay? 1, 2, 3. Recognize. Oh, come on, people. Okay. On the count of 3, you're going to do this motion and say recognize with me. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Recognize. Now, if that did not sting a little bit when you did it wrong. Okay? We're going to do it one more time because I need to make sure you're getting this. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Recognize. Ow, that kind of hurt myself there a little bit. Here's the deal. Nobody can recognize your potential the way you can. Nobody can make a decision for you to live into that potential but you. Here's the thing. We complicate this a lot. Because have you ever noticed that the people that seem the most powerful sometimes are the humblest? Like they don't walk around being like, hey, look at me. They know who they are, and they're comfortable living into that. Mother Teresa, Billy Graham, I don't think they ever said, I'm the most powerful person in the world. And yet millions of people look at them. Even people that don't have the same faith that they have, look at them and respect them for the life they lived. My grandma taught me a lot about this. She died about 7 years ago when she was 92 years old. Grandma Ruth is what we all called her. And Grandma Ruth, she was quiet. She was unassuming. And her husband, my dad's dad, died when he was very young. So she raised 3 boys on her own. And she was a stay-at-home mom. And when her husband passed, she ended up having to go back to work. She was a secretary in the chemistry department of the Ohio State University. Go Bucks? Nothing. Nobody likes the Bucks. Okay. All right. So she worked at the Ohio State University, and she just did that. She worked there. She was active in her church. She raised her boys, her 3 sons, who were extremely active in trying to beat each other up in the backyard. I've heard stories. But she just lived her life. And it didn't seem very powerful at all for her to live her life. But as she lived her life, there was outcomes that came out of her life that you don't really see that often. When she died, she was 92 years old. She had 19 grandchildren. Of those 19 grandchildren, because here's the thing, all 3 of her sons, they all 3 grew up and they all 3 became pastors. And then of her 19 grandchildren, when she died, 12 out of the 19 grandkids were active in serving in a church and ministry. And I don't care if you share her faith or not. That's not the point here. The point is that when you live your life knowing who you are and you just live into that, the effect of it is an undeniable power. You can't deny the legacy that she left because of the powerful nature of her life. Now, did my grandma walk around into rooms and be like, recognize? I mean, no, my grandma did not do that. Kind of makes me laugh thinking about grandma. I just can't picture it. But my grandma, her life was undeniably powerful because she lived into her potential. And see, you and I, we have that same potential, but here's what happens. We make excuses for our potential, right? We make excuses why we don't live into the greatness that's on the inside of us. We go back into that victim mentality instead of stepping into the greatness and stepping into that potential and recognizing that potential. We don't fulfill it because we try to make excuses for it. And I just want to challenge you. You know what? It's not so hard to find your potential. I mean, it might just be a few questions away. What do I love? What am I passionate about? Who are the people that I love to help? Even within the business, and you guys are all in the same business, but even within that, there's pieces that make you uniquely you. Stop trying to be the coach like the other person is the coach. You're not them. You be you. Because there's only one of you on the planet, and you don't need to be anybody else. Just like me on the basketball team. I didn't need to be my brother. I was never a point guard. Never will be, never was, never will be. But I didn't need to be him. My team needed me to be me. Guess what? Your team, they don't need you to be that other person. They need you to be you. Your clients, they need you. They were drawn to you in the beginning for a reason. There's something in you that they need. And so if you would just live into that and begin to give back to that, to people who you are, there's a power in that. You know, I'm looking now. Is Emily on the call? She's not. Anyways, Emily Langway, she was at the conference in California too, so I got to know her. But I've seen her before and after pictures of her dropping 70 pounds and keeping it off and living a healthy life and being able to help other people live into that healthy life. I was sitting around that house talking to her in California, and y'all don't like turn me off right now, but I CrossFit. At least I was. I'm not now, actually. But I was CrossFit. I thought Emily was going to jump out of her seat and shake me. She's like, no, don't do it. Like, she was so ridiculously passionate about wanting me to be as healthy as I could be. And she had nothing in the game for that, but she just wanted me to be healthy. And see, when you take your story of you being you, of you stepping in and seeing that transformation in your own life, and you begin to give that away to other people, that's where the power comes. But I know Emily had to overcome some limiting beliefs about herself before she could do that. Every single one of you, there might be something right now that you're zeroing in on that, hey, is a limiting belief about yourself. It keeps you from recognizing and living into that full potential. And you got to call that out. You need to get people. That's why your teams and these calls are so important, because you get people around you that see your potential greater than you see your potential. Do not get lazy on this community, on the people around you that want to strengthen you. They're there for a purpose. They need you. You need them, so that you can keep each other on track to live into that potential. But don't let those limiting beliefs hold you back from the greatness that's on the inside of you. All right, let me give you one more. Are you all ready for the last critical step? Here it is. The last critical step is this. Spend your life adding value to other people. Spend your life adding value to other people. So you got to walk the process, right? So first we take back the power, right? White knuckle intensity, take back the power. And then we recognize what's on the inside of us, right? But is this all about us taking power and recognizing, being like, hey, look at me, world, I'm the greatest. Everybody needs me around. No, we recognize the potential, and then we see what's in us, and then we serve that to the world. We spend our lives adding value to other people. You take it from here and you give it out. So y'all got to do that. Do this. We take back our power. We're just going to go through here. Bring it down. Take it back. And then we recognize. And then you got to do this. Just put your arms out like this. We spend our lives doing this. We spend our lives adding value to other people. Letting go of what has been put in us, of the greatness in us, so that other people can be better. I love the way Zig Ziglar says it. He says, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And I believe that. I believe that you could spend your life, I could spend my life building an empire, getting debt-free, having the perfect marriage, having the perfect little kids. Sorry, I laugh when I say perfect kids because they just don't exist. We could spend our life getting that, being the most fit, looking the best in the gym, having all the curves that we want, all the touch. We could spend our life doing all this. But can I tell you one thing? If you want to impact the world the way you were created to impact the world, your life will be worthless if you don't add value to other people. See, it's not about making money. It's not about the big organization. If you will, instead of trying to make money and recruit clients and recruit team members, if you'll just put your emphasis on adding value to other people, recognizing who you are and what you have to give to them. I mean, and this is a reason why I think Beachbody is so successful, because it's in the business model, right? Because you're supposed to take your story of transformation and then bring people along on the ride. Take your story and help them realize, you know what, this is my story, but you could have your own story of transformation. Isn't that the job that you're doing? And see, sometimes we get sidetracked by the pressure of building a business, making an income, paying the bills, building that downline. And you know what? What if you just took some time to refocus tonight and say, you know what? It's not about me. It's about what I can add to other people's lives, what I can invest in them, how I can make them better. Because when we do that, when we get our eyes off ourselves and we get our eyes on other people to help them, to serve them, to give them what nobody, see, there's stuff in you that only you can give, that nobody else can give. And if you'll make a decision to add that value to those other people, it's going to change you first, but then it's going to change those other people just as much. You know, for me, and I shared it earlier, you know, I've recognized who my enemy is in this life, or what my enemy is in this life, and that's wasted potential and powerlessness. And so for me, I have to live into that, whether I'm a pastor or whether I'm coaching guys one-on-one or doing it in a mastermind. I live into this purpose that, you know what, I'm going to break that powerlessness off of people's lives, and I'm going to call out and speak that potential. So when I get on a call like this, my heart is to say, listen, guys, you got all the power you need. You just have to take it back. And I don't even know you people, okay? I don't know you. But I could look every single one of you in the eye and say, you've got unlimited potential. Like there's a unique power in your life that nobody else has, but you have it. Stay-at-home mom, working a second job, it doesn't matter what your position is, you've got something that nobody else has. And you've got to make a decision to give that away to other people. And so I would just challenge you, think about what your next step is. Walk through those steps of, okay, is there an area where I need to take back my power? Have I laid down my power and played the victim? I mean, because you can go someplace and get there late and blame it on traffic. Guess what? That's the failure curve. Stop blaming getting there late on traffic and start taking responsibility. See what happens when you apply it to every area of your life. Your kid forgot their homework? Oh, wait, that was me this week. Is that my kid's fault, or do I need to take responsibility for that? No, I need to take responsibility for that. And what about your business? How do you need to take back that power and responsibility so that you can live into it? And then maybe it's your potential. Maybe you have a hard time recognizing your own potential. Well, again, lean into this team, this environment. Maybe you need to up your intake of personal development resources. That's changed my life entirely. But up your intake of that. Get podcasts and books and audiobooks, because if you start seeing your own potential more clearly, you're going to be able to help other people better. And maybe it's that last one of, okay, I've gotten a little caught up in making money and building a team, and I need to get back to the core of, I'm in this to add value to other people, to invest in other people. And I believe if you'll walk through those critical steps, you will have a tangible, real impact in your everyday life, but in your business as well. And that's my hope. That's my prayer for you guys. It's been a privilege and an honor to be on this call with you guys. I hope you crush it in 2017, that you write a story for 2017 that is beyond your imagination, that is great because you're stepping into your own greatness. Thanks.
Wow. Like, just seriously, wow. So Mark, typically we open for questions, and I don't know about the rest of the team, but I'm just kind of dumbfounded. And this isn't the first time I've heard your signature talk, right? So it gets better and better every time I hear it. So we're definitely going to make sure we keep the recording for this for everybody. Mark, I do want to introduce you to Ellen, because she came on. So that's Ellen. She's waving. So she's the head of Team Play Hard. So does anybody have any questions or comments that you'd like to give to Mark? We've got a couple. Mark, you probably don't see it, but there's a chat going. There's a chat capability. And so in the chat, we have to take back our power daily to stay in hope and grace, servant leadership, let's see what else. We've got OMG or OM Heck. I need to watch this recording every day. Dude, this was so awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. Definitely needed to hear this. Took lots of notes. Amazing, incredible, just incredible. It looks like Bill's got a question, so we'll open it up. Billy, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, I was just going to say, Mark, you killed it, dude. You destroyed it, man. It was freaking badass.
Thank you.
And I could relate to you. I didn't have a twin brother, man, but
Yeah.
I was right there with you.
Oh,
so
I think most people can relate to middle school that way. I mean, some of you were studs and jocks in middle school. We hated you, by the way. But most of us, we sucked in middle school. So that was definitely my story.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
And so just so everybody knows, Mark had never been to a Bo Easton event. And this story and this signature talk that you guys just heard was birthed there. That's one of the reasons that we go to Bo. Billy and I have invested in Bo in the past, is because at these events, this is essentially what you learn. You learn to take pieces and parts of your life, put them into stories that are powerful and valuable to other people, and then help to develop kind of like what we call 3 critical steps, which is critical steps that, think about it like this. You're on a plane with the person most important to you. Plane's going down. You're going to die. That person's going to live. What are the 3 things that you want that person to remember and live out in their life? So that's how Bo teaches it. And so that's what Mark's done. And so he's taken that training, applied it, created just an amazing talk that he's given several times now. So that's just the back history for those that are interested in how Mark was able to create a story like that. Everybody can create that in your own business.
Yes.
You know, it's awesome. Okay. Anybody else have any more comments? Heather, go ahead.
Mark, you are captivating. So I'm a tax preparer, and I was going to skip the call tonight because I'm a little behind. And I have a return that's due tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And so I thought, oh, you know what? I'm just going to log on and I'll listen. And that's why you didn't see my face, because I didn't want you to see me doing this and not paying attention to you. So I was just blacked out. I was captivated to the point where I didn't get any of it done. I was totally focused on what you were saying. Thank you. This call was amazing.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that very much. I'm sorry you didn't get work done.
It's all right.
But not really.
Stay up late.
Anybody else have any other quick comments or maybe questions for Mark about how he created his signature talk? Anybody else? All right, Mark, you're off the hook.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, you guys. Go out the rest of this week, you guys. Be bold, live courageously, and dream bigger. We'll talk to you guys soon.